Well, hello, hello, hello. If you've landed here, you've landed on Let's Talk News, and you are joining all the talkers as we dive deep into subjects that the news media doesn't always do the deep dive for. Tonight, we have a plethora of topics, but it all comes down to the same thing, is that children are destroying America. And when I say children, you might think I mean 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, grade school children, high school children. No. I mean those 40-year-old toddlers that think that they should be able to have rights without responsibilities. You know, those kids that you and I raised and apparently did something wrong along the way, because we were always raised that children should do better than their parents. But in our effort to indulge our children, what we've done is we've created a gullible class of citizens who are supposed to be responsible for us in our old age, but who are actually too lazy to actually figure things out for themselves. And why should they? College taught them everything they need to know. They're brilliant. We're the idiots. And now we're going to pay the price. But before we get going, I wanted to say hello to Lucille Chavone. How are you, our OG? And Francine, good to have you here. You know, from AI data centers and the whole push against it and the reason behind why, to Amazon warehouses that never got built because Democrats didn't want jobs, to Mamdani's government-funded grocery store that is in an absolute, it's twisting itself into a pretzel to try and make sense. Mamdani is, to try and make sense of his original thought to build a government grocery store. We've got lots and lots and lots to talk about here. So I don't want to keep you waiting. We do have a lot of clips, but I thought that we would start with something very interesting. I think it was last week we spoke about the Maine governor. Was it Maine or Massachusetts? It was one of those northern states. I think it was Maine. That signed the bill for abortion up until birth. And there was a group of women around her as she signed this bill, and they were all clapping and applauding. And to me, I was just confounded. I was confounded as to how it was possible that puppies had more rights in the United States and more sympathy from your average citizen than human babies. Now it seems that we're actually the 40-year-old children are actually thinking that it's okay for a mom to unalive all of her babies, even if they're in school, because she's suffering from postpartum depression. I'm talking about the Clancy case in particular. This week, there were women lining, outside of the courthouse in support of Clancy. Watch, it's too much. And try to hear over my dog snoring what the woman says about this being women's reproductive rights. This is a rally to support women's reproductive rights.
Organized it. She handed out flags, and all these flags are representing support from different countries around the world that are watching this. Everybody's trying to learn from it, and they're showing their support in women's health care. One of the things that come out of this is there's more awareness to help women. You look at other countries that take care of women that have just had childbirth.
Yeah, 100%. boys taught myself everything. I was a mother doctor. I was my 3 girls.
It's all good.
So those vehicles were carrying Clancy, and those women were there. I'm sorry, I said reproductive rights and women's health care. They're there in support of women's health care. So apparently now, removing your children from the earth and their ability to breathe, and I'm careful with my words because YouTube is already giving me grief. Apparently, that's now part of women's health care. See, I believe that postpartum depression is a real thing. I do. And I'm not entirely certain that Clancy, at the moment that she committed what she did, was all in her right mind. There was a lot of medication involved in there. But at the end of the day, she understood what she was doing because she tried to take herself out too, right? And she's sitting in that courtroom now, and she's having to relive this over and over again. Well, she's never going to be free of that guilt, ever. Will she be able to harm anybody else? Probably not. What should her punishment be? Not sure. But to find her not guilty, I don't know. I don't know that I could support that, because she knows she's guilty. We all know she's guilty. And I think that the conversation around this is very important. But to try to make the aggressor the victim, I have a real problem with this. A real problem with this. And the fact that it's the awfuls, the American white female liberals that are out there applauding and never talking about the 3 victims, her own children. And that includes her mother-in-law and her mother. I mean, there's a lot going on there, a lot. But could you ever imagine a time when this would be okay? Other than maybe, in the 1600s, when we lost a lot of children to things like that, and people didn't care because children and women were both disposable back then. But it seems like we're coming back around to that these days, right? Children and women, both disposable. And it's interesting. I was watching a news program the other day, and the gentleman on the news said that there were, women who were choosing not to have babies, not to reproduce, and that they were instead choosing their careers, doctors, lawyers, whatever. And he said something that I thought was poignant. He said, if you removed all the female professionals from the world tomorrow, the world would not be impacted. It would still keep on going. But if you removed all the mothers from the world tomorrow, there would be no future. Think about that for a minute. Yeah, women can do all kinds of things. Nobody's saying that they can't. But the choice to not have children impacts the world. It impacts the entire world. The choice to not be a doctor is not going to impact the world. But the choice to not have children. And that's what we're doing. We're getting rid of women. We're giving our femininity and our ability to reproduce. We're giving it away. We're as we strive to be more independent, we're actually losing who we are. Very interesting. I'm not going to debate that topic, but very interesting. Hi, Andrew Dorman, and hi, Karen. How are you? So our talkers, we don't have a lot of talkers here tonight, but that's okay. We've got things to talk about. So And usually, it's the children and the babies, right, that will tug at your heartstrings. That's the old adage, for politicians, kiss a baby and things like that. And if you want to actually, get people's attention, you use children in your ads and things like that. And clearly, women don't care about the fact that those children are gone. What else is perplexing is the Mangione-istas. I don't know if you saw that, but here's a group of people who are supporters of Luigi Mangione, the gentleman that unalived the healthcare CEO. And here is CBS News, which I find so freaking interesting. CBS News is doing a story not on the fact that there are so many people who are supporting Luigi Mangione in his actions and excusing his actions and actually holding him up as a hero. Oh, no. That's not the story. The story is, how do these influencers who have nothing but love for Luigi Mangione got a press pass in New York City when, quote unquote, legitimate reporters had to jump through hoops in the past to get a press pass? Watch. This one's going to blow your mind too. I mean, it's like one after the other blowing your mind.
Have you heard of the Mangionistas? They were at the Luigi Mangione hearing yesterday and have been in many of them. Now they're all over the internet because they have official New York City press credentials and because of what they were saying while wearing them.
I'm standing on business. Brian Thompson. I don't give a flying about millions of Americans.
The case against Luigi Mangione is unlike any other criminal case I've ever covered. But one of the most striking aspects of this case is the amount of support that many people have expressed for Mangione, not just the people who think that he's innocent and people who believe that he's somehow being framed, but people who actually celebrate the crime itself.
His children are better off without him. They need to learn to not be like their dad and enjoy the blood money.
Since the beginning of this case, both in federal and state court, the courtrooms have been filled with Mangione supporters, people who are wearing, dressed with memorabilia of Luigi, the character from Mario and Luigi or Super Mario, to support Luigi, people wearing what they call Luigi green to show their support, usually women sitting in court. But there's a new phenomenon that I noticed last time we were in federal court and that I saw again today. Fans of Luigi Mangione, supporters of Luigi Mangione, with the official New York City press passes. Those passes we use so that we can cover the news in the city and to access courtrooms as members of the press so we can bring that information to you, the public. I work for a news organization that has standards and legal departments that have to corroborate that the information is factual and fair. The difference now is we're seeing these fans get the same kind of access, the same kind of passes to make statements that are really completely biased in favor of this defendant, unlike what is expected from members of the press. And I remember when we applied for these passes, you have to submit a number of stories that have been published from New York City on various different topics and cases. It used to be that you couldn't even submit court cases. It has to be things or stories that happen in the news, like a fire in New York City or a shooting or things of that nature in order to get those New York City passes. Now, people who have social media accounts and are talking about the case seem to be getting the same kind of access with those official passes. Who gets to hold a New York City press credential used to be up to the NYPD, but a lawsuit that was filed in 2008 on behalf of independent journalists changed that. And ever since 2021, it has been up to the city to grant those. This is what Mayor Zoran Mamdani had to say about the controversy.
Those three individuals should not have received press passes. My administration is reviewing the entire process and the standards for press credentialing. There is a good-natured debate to be had about where a press pass should extend and where it shouldn't. However, the three people that we are talking about don't fall within that debate.
Okay, so I don't know what was worse. The fact that those three influencers were out there saying that, they were happy about what Luigi did to Brian Thompson. The CBS newscaster who was whining about those ladies being biased and having a press pass and being biased, or the fact that that newscaster had no idea how to do her makeup and had a little white dot on her nose to try and make it look like her nose was shorter than it was, which is a trend on TikTok and things like that. I mean, are they kidding? CBS, of all the places, talking about fair and balanced news? Like they've ever been fair and balanced? Not since Donald Trump has been elected, that's for sure. Karen says it's embarrassing that we only see women protesters. Where are their heads? Karen, I'm starting to think that it's got something to do with the birth control pills, hormones, some product that all the women are taking, that a lot of women are taking, are driving them crazy. Something is wrong here. I know that our hormones, I mean, we're more emotional, I get it. But how is it that the insanity is so deeply rooted in women? I mean, really, and I used to be a big complainer of the fact that back in the, 17 and 18 or 1800s, into the turn of the century and even into the 50s, maybe even the 70s, women were over medicated. Women were kept separate than men. There was a different standard. They weren't allowed to own things. They weren't allowed to have businesses. They couldn't have a bank account. They couldn't do for themselves. And I was always someone to point out that in this very male-dominated culture, all of a sudden, because back in Celtic times, like the 700 BC, women were the ones who trained warriors. Women were the one in charge of the clan. Women were just as powerful and equal to men. So somewhere along the line, after Roman times, it became a thing where women were the fairer sex and were not mentally capable of being equal to men. Even in the Bible, Adam and Eve were equal, even though Eve was created from Adam's rib. They were equal. They were supposed to be equal on earth. But somewhere that went off the line. And some say it was with that Pope Clementine. I can't remember what his name was. But I don't know. At any rate, now I'm starting to wonder about women, because I've said it a million times. This drag queen story hour stuff, you'll never see a man say, "Oh, honey, I have a great idea. Let's take the kids to a drag queen story hour." Never. Is it because he is handsome that they support him? Mangione? Maybe. Could be. Because they fantasize everything. When you take a look at all of these DSA members, including Mamdani, they all have the dimples and the smile. And what's his name? Abdul El Sayed. He's built. Hassan Piker. Built. Good-looking guy. GQ. AOC. Good-looking girl. It's these good-looking people. And usually it used to be the Republicans had the best looking people. But now I guess the Democrats are catching on. Well, not the Democrats, the socialists. But again, if it is Francine, how childish is it? We have children running the world, because at some point, I guess I don't know if it was the boomers or the X's or where we went off the rail, but somewhere we became distracted and we're not paying attention anymore. We don't read, we don't investigate, we buy everything they're spoon feeding us, and it is costing us in this society, and it is costing us. in America, but not just America. It's worldwide. We always say that at this program. Okay, I want to remind you of something. Maybe you do or maybe you don't remember. It depends on where you live, and I don't know how far reaching this was. Before 2020, Amazon wanted to build a headquarters in New York, and they were planning on employing 25,000 people. They were going to build it in Queens, where AOC and Mamdani are both from, by the way, where the Democrat Socialists of America, that's their birthplace in the United States, is Queens. Amazon wanted to do this headquarters, and the city was going to give them $3 billion in tax breaks, city and state tax breaks, through the Economic Development Corporation, which is not unusual. The Economic Development Corporation often went into partnerships with businesses to attract businesses to New York. Well, AOC went on a personal crusade against it, and she won. Amazon ultimately backed out. Well, I want you to listen to this news story from back in 2019 when Amazon finally said, fuck this, I'm not doing it. Oh, by the way, they didn't build their headquarters in Staten Island, but they did build a huge warehouse in Staten Island. And they're now in competition with the Northwell for employees, for how many employees there are. The economic growth in Staten Island went through the roof. Here, watch.
Freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez celebrating Amazon's stunning decision to pull out of building a headquarters in New York. Watch.
We can create 25,000 jobs with mom and pops. We can create 25,000 jobs with companies that are willing to come to the table. But we should not be giving away our infrastructure, our subway system, our schools, our teacher salaries, our firefighters' budgets to a company that has not shown good faith to New Yorkers. And we can ask for more because we deserve more.
The retail giant had planned to build a campus in the Queens neighborhood of Long Island City for 25,000 employees, fueled by $3 billion in state and city incentives to Amazon. The controversy revealing an interesting dynamic playing out right now. Establishment Dems versus the new guard. Listen to CNN senior political commentator, former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm.
Every single governor, Democrat or Republican, are in this fight for jobs. There were 200 cities that competed for Amazon. I would have walked across hot coals to get Amazon to locate in Detroit, for example.
Let's dive deeper into the politics of this whole Amazon situation. Joining us now is Molly Ball, national political correspondent for Time Magazine, and Nathan Gonzalez, CNN political analyst and editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Molly, what does Amazon's New York City pullout tell you about the Democratic Party division? Is it a clash of old versus new blood, or progressives versus moderates? How do you see it?
Well, look, I am not privy to enough details of exactly how much influence Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in particular had on Amazon's decision to talk about that side of it. But in terms of the debate that we're hearing within the Democratic Party, that is something that is very much happening right now, and it clearly has a lot of power. You have a lot of Democrats who are uncomfortable with the kind of energy that Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez represents, and yet they also see that their party, needs fresh blood, needs fresh faces, and that she has excited a lot of people. So I think there's a little bit of a skittishness about, going up against her. I think they're a little bit afraid of her, and I think she probably likes that.
So that was when she was just a freshman congresswoman. She was only in for a year before the DSA really took hold. Now, they were around, but before they really took hold. And the goal was to get rid of 25,000 jobs. Now, you might ask yourself, why would socialists want to get rid of 25,000 jobs when the whole country was bidding for this headquarters? And indeed, at the time, de Blasio and the EDC and the state, who was it? It was Cuomo. And Cuomo, they put together a package, which we often did in state government and city government, to try to attract business so that we could create jobs, because that was the thing, right? That was the thing. Create jobs so there was a good blue collar work, so the middle class could go to work, so people could go to work. But AOC shit canned those jobs. I don't know what the hell she was talking about, teachers' salaries and all that shit. None of that was at play. It was, you don't have to pay this kind of tax. The property tax would be deferred and things like that, which is done in every city, every state in the nation when you want to bring economic development. So what was behind her move to get rid of those jobs? And that wasn't the only thing, by the way. Before that, it was Walmart. The city council, Walmart wanted to come to New York, and the city council stopped them from coming because they weren't union. I mean, they wanted to, produce a lot of jobs, but the city council stopped them. Lucille says she's an idiot, which she is. And remember, she auditioned for that part. And Francine says she didn't understand tax credits. She doesn't understand anything, but that wasn't the goal. The children who today, right, talk about affordability in New York City, that they can't afford anything, that they can't find jobs. Well, there was 25,000 of them right there. And those would have been jobs for the people of Queens. And where they wanted to place it was right. They were going to improve the NYCHA development that was there, a big NYCHA development there. And they were going to give jobs to those people from NYCHA, because that's what Amazon does. It's entry-level jobs. And, and they pay for college and they do all kinds of things. So Amazon is a great little organization, but they didn't want it. They wanted to talk about mom and pops. Karen says she wanted to have people rely on the government. Bingo. Because now fast forward, so that was 7 years ago. Fast forward, and now Mamdani, her cohort, the guy that was, oh, by the way, a volunteer on our campaign and who became an assemblyman soon after, and now the mayor of New York City, he's now talking about government-funded grocery stores. And he's going to sink millions of dollars into these government-funded grocery stores. But I want you to listen to the fallout. Because remember, AOC said mom and pops could create those $25,000 jobs. Oh, really? They never did. Watch Mamdani's plan and listen to what the mom and pop grocery stores say.
Proud to announce a collection of essential staples that will be predictably 30% cheaper at all 5 of our city-run grocery stores.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani announced this week that prices for core grocery items like fresh produce, meat, seafood, as well as essentials like cheese, milk, and bread will be 30% cheaper at the city's 5 proposed municipal grocery stores, with the first slated to open in 2027 and a goal to have all 5 open by the end of his first term.
30% off adds up to real money for New Yorkers, with an estimated $90 saved on grocery bills each month. That is more than $1,000 saved every year.
Under his plan, the prices will be locked in for a month and will not fluctuate like typical grocers. The discount will apply to all shoppers regardless of their income. But not everyone is looking forward to these stores. Anthony Pena, the president of the National Supermarket Association, which represents around 600 independent grocery stores across New York's 5 boroughs, is concerned it's going to hurt existing businesses.
There's concerns of reselling. There's lots of concern that customers will accuse them of price gouging. It's very concerning. Our members are very concerned. The bodegas are concerned. The supermarkets are concerned, because the last thing we need is been servicing a community for 25 years and then all of a sudden get accused of price gouging. It's tough. We feel like it's a little slap in the face.
But Mayor Mamdani says small businesses will be protected.
We've talked about 5 city-run grocery stores, 1 in each borough. There is more than enough market for both existing grocers as well as 1 city-run grocery store.
As far as funding, the mayor has allocated $70 million in the capital budget to deliver on what he calls his, quote, core commitment to New Yorkers. Pena believes these funds should be allocated into existing stores and has expressed those concerns with City Hall.
If you open one city-run grocery store at those discounted prices, you're only affecting the life of the people within a block or two. If you take the same funding, or you take half of the funding, that you got 70, but if you take $35 million and you distribute it amongst the stores in the neighborhood, you can change the life of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, not just a selected few in the neighborhood.
Okay, so I know Pena, and he's a good guy. Here's what the problem is. The problem is that when you think about one grocery store in every borough run by the city, that's ridiculous. The cost of it is ridiculous, and the result, the impact, the positive impact on the community is negligible. However, if you did what they were planning to do with Amazon, give a property tax break, sales tax break, a bulk tax break to these grocers, which would cost the city nothing because it's not it's not that they have to take money out of their pocket. The $70 million for capital to buy property. Oh, by the way, he wants to buy his cousin's properties to put these grocery stores on, but I digress. That is after the fact. That's after the money has come into the city and it's in the budget. If you collect less by giving a tax adjustment, so before you collect taxes, then it's less money that's coming into the city, but more impact in the way that the overhead of these grocers. And it shouldn't just be the grocers, dry cleaners, everything, the costs of doing business in New York because of fines, fees, regulations, is enormous. So if they just reduce that, then the consumer gets a better deal. Same thing with rents. If they stop the rent freeze, where they don't allow landlords to charge more rent, well, you want the buildings to be fixed, repaired, and in good condition. And those prices go up because it costs a lot more to operate in New York City. If they just got their fucking hands out of business, because not one of these children has ever seen a bank account that's balanced, nevertheless knows how to create industry. If they just stop touching the private sector and let it run, things would be more affordable in New York. But they don't know how to do that because that's not how socialists work. Socialists have to own everything and control everything. Karen says, cheap prices until they run out of food. Didn't a city-run grocery store just close down in Chicago? Absolutely. Not just in Chicago. As a matter of fact, Mamdani had a pilot program of a city-run grocery store, and that went out of business in 3 days. These stores will only hurt the nearest bodegas. ShopRite has lowest prices, of anybody. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. But again, government should allow the private sector to be private, and they should focus on what they're supposed to be doing. Their job is to keep people safe, and to get the teachers union to actually do teachers to teach instead of protecting those that don't know how to teach and those that are deadbeats. And there are plenty of those sitting in rubber rooms in New York City. Okay. So having said all of this, these children are now in control. These children are now in control. And we have nobody but ourselves to blame. We put them in charge. And they're selling a whole bunch of shit to other children. And what they're selling to other children is be lazy. Be an influencer. Don't work hard. Don't create anything. Oh, and don't be ingenuitive. Don't be the one that stands out. You've got to go along to get along. Groupthink is the best way. Everybody feel, it's your feelings that matter, not facts, your feelings. And that, it's a big advertising campaign. And they're selling shit to Americans. They're selling laziness, ineptitude, victimization. That's what they're selling to Americans. The laziest generation ever, says Lucille. You're absolutely right? The greatest generation was the one before the boomers, and this is the laziest generation. They sure are. But we made them that way. We told them it was okay. We gave them all a trophy to participate. We worried about their feelings rather than their function. And now they're in charge of our property taxes, our home ownership, where we can buy food. They're in charge of everything. You know what else they're in charge of? Future jobs, future industry. And now it's about 75% of Americans suddenly have a negative view of data centers, which are necessary in the race for AI. 75% of Americans have a negative opinion on data centers, which is the future jobs. That's the future. Half of the information that they have is erroneous, but they all have it. It's kind of like, the whole climate change stuff. And who do you think is feeding that to them? Our friends over in China, Roy Neville Singham, or Neville Roy Singham, whatever his name is. All right, watch this clip.
Of all the issues driving voters this year, concern about data centers in their neighborhoods is a big bipartisan one, and candidates are trying to show they're listening.
We have to stop data centers from jacking up our utility bills. We have to stop data centers from using up all our water. We got to stop data centers from getting sweetheart tax deals. And we got to stop data centers from being built if they can't meet the demands of our communities.
People really effing hate data centers.
They're coming in, gobbling up farmland. They're sucking up water. They're driving utility rates up.
They're tired of higher healthcare costs, of data centers that drive up their energy costs.
Controversy over data centers is also scrambling the traditional left-right split in the country. Republican Vivek Ramaswamy, for example, who's running for governor in Ohio, said he will only allow data centers if they protect the environment and pay electricity bills and property taxes for nearby homes. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has gone from a data center backer to temporarily pausing them and calling for protections for the Texas energy grid. And questions about that are continuing there. My panel is back. John, I know you've been traveling the country, and I'm sure you hear a lot about this, no matter where you go.
It's the no matter where you go part. We saw this in the odd-numbered year last year, just about 30 miles west of here, in suburban Virginia, more affluent communities. You see it when you travel in poorer, working-class, rural communities or farm communities. People are pissed about this. And a lot of it is because they think big moneyed interests, there's a theme across this, it's not just data centers, that the big money is rigged to get them. And is that true in every case? We could argue that forever, but that's what people feel, that these big powerful companies, the tech companies and the utilities have bought the politicians, and they're just doing this without first coming to the community and asking them first. So there is this pervasive, they're out to get me. And it's, again, you find this in affluent suburbs, and you find it in working class rural America and in little small town America as well. It's bipartisan. To the point you're making there, this is not a Democrat versus Republican. This is like they're out to get us, and we're pissed about it.
Let's just put up on the screen a map of the states with the most data centers. Virginia, you mentioned that, Texas.
Okay, so people are afraid of the data centers because they don't know anything about them. The same way that we forewent nuclear power in America, even though we wanted green energy back in the 70s. We decided that because of, what was it? I can't remember the place that we had the nuclear issue, that we couldn't have nuclear power plants anymore. And so we outlawed them. And other countries went nuclear, clean, safe nuclear, and they did much, much better than we did. Let's just talk about data centers for a second. So in Virginia, Loudoun County, the data centers produced so much revenue that teachers got raises and the citizens got tax breaks. It's similar to, oh Lord, there's a county upstate along the railroad, I can't remember the name of it, in New York right now, that has the last nuclear power plant up there. And the people there they get free electricity there. And it was a backwoods town, and now it is a beautiful, well-to-do area. But nobody wanted those nuclear power plants. But they're still on nuclear and they're still doing well. So who is trying to undermine the data centers, the jobs, the children, the future generation of America to excel and do well? It all comes back to our enemies. It's the Chinese. It's the Chinese. And we have to be cognizant of this. I am not one to believe that we should be giving up farmland for data centers by any stretch of the imagination. But I am smart enough to know that if America wants to continue to be a power force in the world, we have to be ahead of everybody on AI and also on data. I mean, we have to be able to, turn on the grid and get the energy that we need. And this bullshit about data centers driving up the cost of energy, wrong. What drove up the cost of energy was Joe Biden's Green New Deal and his moratorium on gas and fossil fuel powered electricity. We all talked about that. So electricity has been going up because of Joe Biden, not because of data centers. And as far as this water and all that, the crap that they're talking about, not having enough water, it's just that, it's crap. Look into it. I don't take my word for it. Look into it. But the most important thing is that collectively as a country, we have to stop being driven by fear. We are the most powerful country in the world. And our people are still so backwoods that fear mongering gets us every time. As a country, we have to think about how are we going to operate? How are we going to protect ourselves? How are we going to continue on? What are our kids going to do in the future? And if we don't understand that we have to start making crap, and stop just being consumers, because you can't be consumers if you have no money. And you have to have your eyes wide open. Your enemies are everywhere. You have to be 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And we are not. We are not. 3 Mile Island. Thank you very much, Francine. But why did I think it was something to do with love or hope or something? I'll have to think about that. Wait, hold on a second. Let's see. There was only because I just have to do it for my own edification. Nuclear meltdown, love. Okay. Love Canal. That was it. Love Canal was a neighborhood in Niagara Falls. Right. So, and they claim contamination. And then the New York side of Niagara Falls was never the same again. People all left out of there. Hi, Anne-Marie. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. All right. So I would say that we're over, but this has become our thing. I think 45 minutes is the new show time. I thank you all for being with us. take a look into data centers yourself in case you're one of those people who are concerned, but recognize that the people that are issuing the propaganda against the data centers are not our friends, are not people who want to see us succeed. People who are issuing the propaganda are the Chinese, because we are in a race. It was like when we were in a race with Russia to get to the moon. And the people that control space control the world. And that's why Trump created Space Force, and that's why we're back. We have a space program again. We have to think more globally than just what's in front of our nose. And we've gotten so lazy, we've forgotten to do that. Thank you for joining me tonight and every night. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're gaining instead of losing again. So I'm glad of that. But yeah, get that YouTube up. We have, I think we just need 14 more. Yeah, 14 more. No, I'm sorry, 104 more. 14 more would have been nice. All right. See you all on Tuesday, unless something big happens over the weekend. Thanks, talkers.